Ubisoft's mistake has put a lot of future fear in people. It's a very stupid mistake with stupid and not that well done communication, as I suppose is the norm for Ubisoft. And it brings up a conversation that's, really kind of important. I hope this is a thing that's not going to come to pass, but it is important.
Yeah, it's a kind of conversation that we've all had. We've had it on the channel as well, numerous times over the past couple of years. But this is like one of the first major examples of people think it's happened, and for a lot of people, including a lot of people who I kind of are a little bit surprised by, the penny finally dropped. It finally clicked. That do you really own your digital games? The answer is a resounding no.
No, you own a license to them.
Yep.
You don't own that game. So this appeared on the Assassin's Creed Liberation HD store page. Now, this is, of course, not the most important Assassin's Creed game in the universe. This is the PC port of the PSP game. I heard that the game actually had quite a few redeeming qualities and nice things. Certainly its Steam reviews are not particularly great, though. But the notice appeared at the request of the publisher. Assassin's Creed Liberation HD is no longer available for sale on Steam. Please note this title will not be accessible following September 1st. Now, a lot of people saw that, and then they realized, hang on, this was on sale a few days ago.
Yeah, I bought that. What?
Yeah, I bought that for £3.50. Less than a sandwich in the modern day.
Yeah.
Right? And then that makes people think, wait, well, so I bought this game maybe 5 years ago, 10 years ago, played it, and now it doesn't exist in my library anymore? What's going on? So I think, understandably, there is well-deserved uproar with this. Now, this was a bit of a follow-on from the coverage we did last week, where just some multiplayer and DLC support was being withdrawn from a whole bunch of Ubisoft games. But it turns out that's not just one game, it's also happening to Assassin's Creed Liberation, Silent Hunter 5, and Prince of Persia: The Forgotten Sands. So, having paid for a game where, yes, the online and DLC functionality is gone, but also, apparently, they're going to make it so that you can't even play the damn thing in single player, even though you bought it. Well, that's worried people. And the thing there is that this is just a thing on Steam shows that this is possible.
Yeah.
Right? Like, Steam don't have the, please note this won't be accessible following whatever date. If it's a case where, okay, you can't buy the game, but you can still play it. It's no longer accessible. So that has got people rightly spooked.
Yeah, and it's not even like that, flagged anything up. This wasn't like Steam going, oh, this is like a problem. It was just, the game's going away. Can't play it. No one at any part of the process went, hang on a second. This doesn't seem quite right, does it? And then obviously it wasn't until players started to think about it that kind of happened.
Yeah.
They're like, wait a second.
So we get a lot of people review bombing the game, and in good theme for Skull and Bones, talking about, this is a pretty justified case of piracy. That's the thing. Look, if a developer, if they completely abandon the game, yeah, have at it. When I download Freelancer from, this is my one, anecdote that I bring up every video. Mm-hmm. When I download that from abandonware.net, am I technically a pirate? I don't know. It's not like EA have taken down Abandonware. Who the hell knows what's going on? But the idea that I would buy that game if there was a version that worked that was on Steam, I would probably get them some money, but no. So it's all very weird. So here's the thing though. Notice is wrong. So this is a great conversation starter, but the game is going to continue to be playable. But the fact that notice is there is the thing that's concerning people, because it's making people realize, oh, well, next time that could be real.
Yeah, it's I think the equivalent of a near miss, where maybe, you didn't look crossing the road, you didn't get hit, but you could have, and now you're like, oh shit, I need to look when crossing the road. It's the same thing here. It was like, wait, we need to have a big conversation about making sure our games and digital games are available even after the publisher says no, and there's a whole big digital ownership rights thing that we should maybe worry about as a subset of video gamers. Oh shit, let's talk about that immediately, please.
Yeah, because you can still put your old disc in a PS2.
Yep.
You can put your cart in a SNES, I guess, assuming it all works.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Not so here. Things can change. Now, of course, it's not like you're going to be having DLC and online support for a SNES game or a PS1 game, so, it is a little bit of an apples to oranges situation, but it still does have people rightly spooked. Now, or not EA, Ubisoft have clarified, saying that only DLCs and online features are going to be impacted. Current owners will still be able to access, play, or re-download them, and their teams are working with their partners to update this information across all storefronts. Now, the one thing, whenever we were going through their statements, it's kind of weird in the blame side, because Ubisoft seemed to be adamant that the store pages shouldn't have been a change in position from what they originally intended. But then Steam's notice just said that all of this is at the request of the publisher. So I don't know. It seems like there's a miscommunication. Maybe somebody just hit the wrong button in the Steam backend, or did not understand the button they were pressing. It could just be something like that. So that means that instead of just features being described as inaccessible, it was the games themselves. But the damage has been done. Ubisoft have earned themselves a massive PR hit. Was it their fault? Who knows?
They can't catch a break, can they?
They cannot catch a break. No, they really can't.
Wow, they don't deserve one, do they?
Yeah. There used to be more of a solid benchmark of quality with Ubisoft. But I guess now, here, it's the weird thing about Ubisoft. It's always constant doomerism, yet Assassin's Creed Valhalla is a humongous success. Yep. People are still playing the fighting game. The slashy fighting game, what's it called? For Honor. Yeah, people are still playing For Honor. Siege is, of course, still really big. Mm-hmm. So, like, they do have all these successful games. I think it's just that they've had, with that, like, nice, stable foundation, lots of misses and strange things happen that have felt needless to people.
Yeah, I think that's exactly what it is, because, you know, you don't really get good PR from having a solid line of, like, players just enjoying their games. You kind of get the PR from the things that you're doing, the kind of the moving and shaking you're doing. And Ubisoft have been moving and shaking. I don't even know how to describe it, but it's not a very pleasant thing to look at for anyone. It's quite horrendous. I mean, and they just keep getting clowned on for it. So just kind of get clowned on again for more stuff, despite their best efforts.
And you know, one thing is, the messages for Liberation are the exact same for Space Junkies. And Space Junkies is a game that will no longer function after that date at all.
Yeah.
It's also only 3 years old.
Crazy.
Right? Now, okay, not that many people are playing Space Junkies, but there's still something that feels weird about that.
Yeah, it's the principle of the matter. It's like, yeah, well, okay, then you immediately think, okay, well, how many players needs to play a game for it to stay alive? And then you go, okay, well, is it enough to keep the servers running? Is it enough to keep paying the devs for, you know, continued updates? But then that's paying the devs, that's not making profit, and those devs could be used to make profit elsewhere. And then that becomes, if you don't keep the onus on, listen, developers, you have a right to ensure that people can access the products they buy from you. That is your responsibility as a publisher, as a developer of video games. If you don't kind of push on that hard enough, then they'll be pushing back the other way, which is, well, we'll just drop your game as soon as it's not making enough profit for us. And that's the kind of thing where that's technically what's kind of happening there.
And then the worry is that over time that would erode consumer confidence. I think that's something that's happened in the free-to-play arena. Probably makes it harder for people to break into free-to-play, because, you know, how many people buy free-to-play, or not buy, you know, they go into a free-to-play game, but fizzles out after its launch. And they sort of lose confidence. They don't want to get invested in another game, even if they like it. Now, the thing is, there's actually 632 delisted games on Steam. This is, so this is not a new thing at all. For some games, it's a licensing issue, right? The 007 Bloodstone game that had to be revoked from sale because of licensing agreements with the IP holder. There's another Ubisoft game in there. I thought this was interesting. For Ruse.
Oh, yes.
I didn't even know that. So, yeah, because of the expiration of licensing rights over certain military items within the game, Ruse is no longer available for purchase. This does not in any way affect players who've already got the game in their library. Now, that I just found to be kind of interesting. I suppose it just means they did not get a perpetual license for that game.
Yeah.
Which then, to me, is like a bit weird that you're going to release a game and your licenses are going to expire. I suppose they obviously will have some sort of renewal option baked into that contract, but whatever the fee is maybe more than they're getting from the game. But even then, that's kind of weird, because like you can still play Company Heroes 1, you can still play Company Heroes 2, you can still play other strategy games that have real looking things in them.
Yeah, I guess that's a case where they didn't want to pony up for the full one. They wanted to keep the options open for, you know, if this does well, we'll renew. Which is kind of like almost like a planned kill switch in supporting their game and paying for the support for it. They're like, oh no, we'll just have the obsolescence, the kill switch baked into the entire setup, the entire strategy of releasing and selling this game. So if it doesn't do as well as we want to, we can just say, oh, whoops, sorry, it's gone, haha, whoops, sorry about that. Our bad, consumer. Please buy our next game, please, thank you.
Yeah, I mean, other reasons whenever a developer and publisher contract breaks down, was it Frogware, is that? No, it was someone who works with Focus Home, who are now called Focus Interactive. I think it was for some...
Was that the Sherlock Holmes games?
Yeah.
Yeah, it was, yeah.
Yeah, there was something there. So we've had a few examples of that. Now, what's funny then is, Valve, they've talked about the kill switch for Steam, where basically they can just hit a button and everyone gets all their stuff DRM free. I mean, I wonder what circumstances would cause that button to be pressed. Probably never happen. But obviously they can't stop people from stopping or revoking their games, right? Now then, what's interesting is there's a lot of companies hoovering up IP.
Yeah.
That kind of makes you wonder what will go on there. A little bit like, we've talked about before, the sort of commercial preservation versus preservation as a hobby. So if it's all about commercial preservation, then only the, readily commercially viable things will be preserved, right, for games, which then would mean that if commercial preservation ended up crowding out hobbyist preservation because people are going to go to where the money is, then that, in a way, could in some ways be better for that, because now there's money in it, so people will put resources into it. But for more complete coverage of games and super niche stuff, maybe won't be as good. So I suppose as some of this IP gets hoovered up, like what happens if something weird happens to Embracer and licenses and a whole bunch of games go? Just a funny thing to think about. And funny enough, our final example of this is Metal Gear Solid 2 and 3.
Yep, they went down to licensing issues with, I think it was music, Konami said. Because obviously they kind of use a couple little things and have different creators involved. So they were gone, and now Konami are like, well, it's now with the 35th anniversary of the Metal Gear series would put us on the map in a bunch of ways, and is one of the most profoundly interesting and incredible series in gaming. MGS2 was fucking like basically a sci-fi novel in the fact that it told the future we live in back in 2001, 2002, and I played it, and that's why my brain's broken. I think the 35th anniversary of this incredible series will maybe make a move to solve those licensing issues and bring 2 and 3 back so you can buy them again. The old versions, not the updated versions. So, fuck Konami, but also, yeah.
Well, so, the delisted games, though, are Sons of Liberty HD, Snake Eater HD, Metal Gear Solid HD. Those are all on the PS3. Then also, like, Vita versions, PS Now, Xbox 360, 3DS. Didn't know Snake Eater was on 3DS, but there we go. So maybe those will come back on sort of more of those platforms too.
Hopefully, but that implies Konami would actually do that, like make the effort. Which
who knows? But I mean, those are the games that haven't gone because of the licensing stuff. So hard to say, but at least that's an example of us getting the stuff back. But I think just the idea, the idea that Snake Eater was pulled.
Yeah, no, you can't buy like the Metal Gear Solid games properly.
That's
you
insane.
Can't play them properly on modern platforms. That's
insane.
It is possibly like, I don't mind Konami, if they have a falling out with Kojima and kind of wreck the end of the series, whatever else, that's fine. If they make a load of shit games, that's fine. But they are effectively, through incompetence, holding what might be one of the best video game series of all time, and absolutely vital to preserve and be able to play in all forms, because it's just so meaningful to the development of video games that those games were made.
Yeah, no, some Zoomer can't have some ancient, decrepit 30-year-old recommend that they play Snake Eater.
Yeah,
and then they can go and play it. They can't do that.
Yeah, they can, but they have to do it through emulation or some other way. They can't just go, okay, I will go and do this simply and enjoyably.
They don't have
in good form.
They don't have the attention span to turn on an emulator.
Yeah, that's the problem, right?
It's far too much.
Yeah, absolutely.
I'm only joking with you.
Yeah, no, there's...
But like that is the thing, though. Piracy is a service problem. So
sure
as long as you have to deal with emulators and any workarounds to get access to these games, it just means that it's harder to share great games with people. So that's why all this licensing stuff is actually really quite important.
Yeah, and I think this might be the first time, like globally, but someone in a legal context is finally talking about game preservation. Over in Japan, the Love Hina mangaka, Ken Akamatsu, he's been like campaigning to become a politician, I can't remember which party it is in Japan. I don't have it here, but basically on the very much the realm of avoiding foreign and moral censorship of like all of their media industries. And one of the first things he did when he got elected to the Diet was like, yeah, here's I've got a team together. We're going to start putting together legislation to preserve retro games in Japan, because it's so important to obviously Japan retro games. Obviously, that's super, super, super important to them. I was like, yeah, they're now going to actually put a task force together to build a government like funded preservation of old retro games in a playable state.
That's
cool.
insane.
Yeah.
Like that would be like the equivalent of us doing that for the BBC Micro. Or,
Yeah.
or something.
Yeah.
It's just a bit weird to think about.
Yeah.
So look, there you go. Yeah, your access can just be revoked. Thankfully, it's a pretty rare occurrence. But the notion that it happened to, like, perhaps you could say the most iconic Metal Gear games.
Yeah.
Because, I mean, when I think about Metal Gear, I do think about 2 and 3.
Of course you do. Yeah.
That they were gone. It's just spooky. So, something we should think about at the
For
very
sure.
least. And, oh, man, yeah, rough. Okay, so let's hope that this licensing issue can eventually be sorted out, that we don't have all this bullshit. And I suppose, as we talked about in a previous video, that we have some sort of, perhaps we have a situation where developers are thinking about an off-ramp for them doing support for their games, such that the ability for there to be a community server or something like that is a bit more possible. Obviously not applicable to all games in the universe, of course. But in a world where Titanfall gets saved by North Star, I think things like that just are great and make sense. That
100%.
said, they
Absolutely.
also would probably cost a bit of money, and that to the company wouldn't make sense.
Yep. Absolutely.
So there we go.
Absolutely.
Okay, that's it for us. Let me know what you think. We'll see you next time.